And looking over the film, what were some of the things that stood out to you?
I thought just some overall play by several players. I thought was very good. Just really pleased with that. I think some of the negatives that we see and that we'll talk about later on as coaching staff, are all things that are correctable. It wasn't as if somebody just wasn't good enough. It was just we missed some opportunities. A couple of them were everything from poor alignment to poor footwork to poor hand placement on both sides of the ball. But there also were a lot of good things that we're going to build off of.
There's that three-play sequence in the fourth, 2 interceptions and then a Jaguars touchdown. Just in looking back at that, what should change in those plays particularly? Should Carson Wentz be doing anything differently to avoid those turnovers?
Well, I think the first one was, and based on what we saw watching the tape on the screen pass that got intercepted, it looked like the defender was actually in the wrong crease. At least that's what we're looking at going, well, shouldn't he be rushing over here? But he came underneath and made a hell of a play. Maybe if Carson sees him coming, he throws it into the ground as opposed to trying to throw it to the back. I mean, that's the hard part about that play. The the interception on the out, it looked like he was going through his progression and held a little longer on one spot and was a little bit late throwing it to the out. It's one of those things you tell him, hey, if you're going to hang on the guy, throw the ball to him. If not, you've got to go a little bit quicker through your progression. I mean, that's something that I know Kenny and Scotty will talk with him about more so than me commenting on it. And then on the touchdown, hey, we just can't miss a tackle. I mean, we're in position. We just got to make sure we make a tackle.
You said you liked what you saw from both your coordinators yesterday. Is there specific moments that stick out to you as?
Well, the biggest thing I said, more so than anything else, was sticking to the game plan, sticking to what we had worked on and practiced, and I think not trying to force anything to happen. The thing that I applaud Scott was, we still threw the ball in a moment where a lot of people thought, well, maybe they should be running it. But again, if they're going to stack the line, we don't want to beat our head against a wall. But sometimes discretion is a better part of valor, and you take that. But the moxie in which he called plays, the way he handled the quarterback on the sideline. I thought that was really good. I really did. As far as Yak was concerned, I just loved how steady he was, how he stayed to it, how he was engaged with the players, with the coaches on the sideline, and that's the kind of stuff you want. And as I said, I thought Nate was very steady. You have 2 punt returns, you average 22 yards on that. Basically saying that the offense there's one less first down the offense has to get. That's a big deal, and again, we averaged 25 yards on kickoff returns. So, they were solid. I thought the coordinators really handled the day yesterday very well.
On defense, you talked in training camp about syncing up the rush and the coverage. Yep. How did you feel that went? I
think there was a stretch early on where it was really, really good, and then I thought later on we got into a little bit of lull as a team, and that's something I got to get. I got to get us out of that sooner. I really do. I mean, when you turn the ball over a couple of times and they score, we've got to be better than that, and I got to make sure I'm on top of that. But I just thought it went the way you want it to for the most part.
Any update on Fidarian's?
No, I know he is right now getting an MRI, and then once we get all the results and everything, I will go over and I will talk with the trainers and the doctors to see where we are with everybody. For the most part, but I do know that we have 3 guys that will be getting MRIs this morning: Fidarian, Jonathan, and Wes, just to see see where they are with everything. As I said last night, I thought Jonathan's didn't look as bad, but we want to get one just to make sure, and we also want to make sure we get one on Wes to see exactly where those guys are and what their status will be going forward.
And what's Jonathan's injury or MRI? Groin. Okay.
Yeah.
Some of those plays with Jamie Davis being matched up on someone like Christian Kirk, I'm sure you want Jamie to handle those better, but is that something that can maybe be adjusted to get a faster defender on there?
Most certainly. I mean, there were a couple of issues that came up that we can correct. And again, it's one of those things that we're going to look at it by game plan, knowing that's some people think that's one thing they can try and exploit. Well, we've got to be able to have an answer to take that away. and not allow them to exploit that. I will say that on one of them, you'd love to have seen Jamin stay more inside and force that guy to go up over the top. If he does, that makes it a tougher throw on the quarterback. Unfortunately, he didn't take the air out of that one particular one across the middle. But, with his ability to run and cover, it's not that much of a mismatch if he does his techniques the way he should. I mean, young man's got tremendous skill set. He's a run-through tackler, and, he's just got to understand that, hey, I've got to play to my leverage side, understand where my help is coming from.
And the corners, Kendall, William, BSJ, they played all the snaps. What did you make of their
I thought they played some good football. They did. I thought there were a couple times that, early on they were a little cautious, but as the game went on, you start to see their aggressive nature. I appreciated some of the plays they made. I was a little concerned with a couple of calls. I don't necessarily agree with them all. But, we just got to be aware and play smarter than that. But I did like the way that they came up. They were physical. We blitzed them a couple of times. They got involved in the run game a couple of times and threw their bodies in there to help make some tackles. So I thought they played pretty well.
Feels like you guys are able to rush just 4 on a lot of occasions. What does that do for you guys and just generating that pressure just based on those looks?
Well, if you're generating pressure with 4, it's going to help your secondary because you don't have to blitz. You don't have to bring that extra guy. I think that's important. Really liked a lot of the combinations that we had out there, too. I thought some of these guys really gave great effort. I thought some of the rush games were really good, 2-man games, 4-man games, running stunts on both sides. That really helped us, and I think our guys have gotten much better at it. I think their timing as individuals, working with other individuals, has become really good. And that's one of the things that has to happen in coordinating the rush. It's not just the front 4 with the back 7, but the combination of guys that are working. If you're running a 2-man game and one guy looks in too early, he gives it away. Well, I thought our guys acted it out pretty well. I thought some of our 3-man games where we drove with 2 guys and looped with the other, I thought that was pretty good. That came very close a couple times to hitting the quarterback. It did affect the throw because he did get in the quarterback's face a couple times. So there were a lot of things that really seemed to be coordinated well, and that's something we got to continue to work on in practice. I do think on Wednesday we had a really good one-on-one session with the O-line and D-line, and I think that kind of helped lead to the way they played.
With how the defense performed, I mean, is that kind of more of what you expected, or is there still some things to work through?
I think there's still some things we can improve and get better at. A lot of things that I know Jack and the staff worked on this offseason, are starting to come to fruition. It's not quite where we want it to be yet, but I do think the guys most certainly played well, and I do think there is room for improvement, and I'm really looking forward to when we all sit down and talk about it as a staff.
We've asked you about Armani Rogers a lot, but just how impressed are you by kind of how quickly he's developed that position, and what more can he do when he kind of learns even more intricacies about playing tight end?
Well, I'll say this: I think the tight end group is really shaping up very nicely. We got Logan returning, and he's still working his way through it. I thought John Bates was physical. He did miss a pass he should have caught, I think. But those 2 guys are veteran guys that are going to continue to settle in because they missed training camp for the most part. But you watch the other young guys, and you watch Armani and his athleticism, and I think it is a skill set that's going to go ahead and continue to develop well for us in terms of his ability to run, catch the ball. And he's a try-hard blocker. He really is. He's a little light, but he tries very hard. And sometimes all you need to do is get in the way. The other guy we're anxious to see back on the football field will be Cole Turner. Cole had a good week last week. We probably could have played him if we needed to. But going into this, we felt one more week of preparation would be even better for him. So he's got a chance to play next week. But we'll see. We'll see what the combination of tight ends will be for us.
And you mentioned there was a lull in the team after those 2 interceptions. Who was able to rally the team up? Was that mainly on Carson, or was there anybody else that stood up?
I think a lot of it really falls on the quarterback, in terms of getting the ball distributed and having somebody make a play, and you complete a big pass on 3rd down, and all of a sudden there's some energy, and we start rolling, and then he throws the deep one to Terry. And you could see the defense feed off it, knowing we had to get the ball back. And the defense fed off of it very well. And so that energy sometimes created by playmakers. A guy makes a play, a big conversion, a big throw, and next thing you know, we're off to the races. And credit to Scott on that one, because when Scott made the play call, he told Carson, hey, take a long look at Terry. If he's there, throw it. And that's exactly what happened. And that type of energy, that type of play, really sparked it, because in the second, the pass rush really stepped up. Guys played really stout at the line, limiting their opportunities, and we made a couple of plays.
And how important was it for you as a head coach and for the team to see Carson Wentz come back after those 2 interceptions and win the game?
Well, I think that's very important. I really do. But what I thought was really cool was, in the post-game locker room talk he gave about, he accepted responsibility right away, saying, "Hey, I got to throw the ball better. I can't do that." I think speaking up like that, I think his teammates hearing him take responsibility and ownership of his own play, that was huge. And so that's important, not just to me and his teammates, but to him. And I think that was huge.
And then last one, Jahan Johnson, he came up big at the very end, rookie. I mean, how great was that for him and Carson to connect really well throughout the game?
I think, not just that play, but as you go through it and you look at a lot of the plays that not just he had, but several of the other guys, just kind of showing everybody what you're capable of, I think really helps. I think that, develops the trust that you need to be able to play well as a unit. I think that, Carson will learn and understand his receivers and just know that, hey, if I can put the ball in an area within their catch radius, they're going to make plays for us, and that's big.
Ron, with Curtis, you talked about the plan throughout training camp. Was the plan yesterday to get him the ball that much, or was this game flow the way things kind of went?
I think early on the plan was to get the ball to him, and to really kind of help set a tone. But once the success started to roll, I think Scott kind of continued to go to him. And then what it did eventually was it opened it up, because if you look at it, we had 5 different guys run the ball. We had 10 different guys have passes thrown to them. I mean, that's, and I've talked about that. If we can spread it and keep it spread, it spreads the defense. And then we'll see some plays happen. We'll be able to use the underneath passing game. Now they tighten it down. We can throw it over the top. I mean, those are the things that happen when you can spread the ball and they just don't focus in on one guy. I think that was important. And
probably in the past couple of years, if Terry McLaurin had only had one catch going, into the fourth quarter, we probably would have the next day said, "Hey, what do you have to do to get him the ball more?" He obviously has the touchdown, but you do have a lot of other guys that were able to make plays. Mm-hmm. Is that sort of the difference here? That's not just on Terry. You have all these other guys.
Absolutely. It's taking a lot of the pressure off Terry, but there may be a game where we may come out and we may target Terry the first quarter 4 or 5 or 6 times, and now all of a sudden they got to make an adjustment, do something different. Well, we see that, we'll go somewhere else. But it's really going to be by game plan as our offensive coaches watch our opponents and see the things that they do or they may do or they could do and they end up doing it. Then it'll dictate, Scotty's call playing and how it goes, in terms of attacking opponents. I mean, there's a lot of things that we can do with this, and then the big thing we got to do is continue to protect Carson as much as we can, just like we did. I mean, we gave up 1 sack, I believe it was, and if we can continue to do that, we have a chance.
With a lot of those looks that you guys are throwing at defense and 2 backs with Curtis and JD, Jonathan and Antonio, how much confusion could you see in the defense based off those looks, and how much did it open up creases in other areas for other guys? Well,
I think what it did more so than anything else is, they've got to pay attention to those matchups, and especially if they think those matchups might be mismatches. And again, just being able to do the many different things that we did do, I think really helps us, and again, it's all about spreading the ball.
And then defensively with Federian, you said last night you were concerned. So John Allen, I think those guys played a lot at defensive tackle yesterday. Level of concern then with the depth with that at that spot, and how, again, without knowing what Federian's injury ultimately is, what's going forward, what's your concern with that depth?
Well, it really did, because, typically you don't want those tackles to play as much as they did. And one thing we did do is we did take F.A. Obata and use him inside as a 3 technique. In fact, F.A., I believe, lined up one time as the 1. But that's his versatility, and that's really his worth for us. That's where you find value in players like that can switch positions. But going forward, we most certainly are looking at an opportunity to bring in at least one defensive tackle that we may put on the 53. And another defensive tackle we may put on practice squad. I mean, these are all options that we have to have. There's several names that we're looking at, young names, young guys, guys that we think have opportunities to come in and help.
Just Jamin Davis, since you looking at the tape, you talked about some of the ups and downs he had yesterday. What stood out to you, and in particular, maybe on that ETN play in the first quarter where ETN was open in the end zone and Lawrence missed him?
Say it again.
The play where Jamin was covering ETN in the end zone and Lawrence overthrew him, but just curious what you thought on that play, and then in general on Jamin.
Well, on that particular play, what I'd like to see him is get over the top a little bit more, as opposed to getting into a chase position. Again, it's one of those things that, hey, you've got leverage from the inside out. What you want to do is make sure you're where you need to be, and if he rolls to the out on the up, then you've got to be able to put yourself in position to make that play. I mean, it's a thing that, as he continues to work at because of his athleticism, those are plays he can make, and he knows that. I thought his overall play was pretty solid. I mean, we put him in a couple of tough positions, and they got the better of us. But again, that's something we have to look at as coaches. We got to make sure we're helping him and being able to put him in a better position. I liked the way he played against the run. I thought he was downhill and physical a couple of times. One time he went downhill and ran into a pretty stout guard. But that's going to happen. And as he continues to grow and develop, I mean, we're happy with what we got from him.
After the preseason starters don't play as much anymore, as around the league and all that. Does that lead to some hiccups early in these first games, and it's maybe more so in coverage, testing rules, et cetera?
Yes, and that was one of the things that we did learn. There were a couple of things that we got to make sure we get corrected as far as those are concerned on both sides of the ball. A couple of times we had, a couple of misalignments. A couple of routes weren't as sharp as they needed to be. On the defensive side, we had a couple of coverages that we had a couple of banjo calls or in and out calls, whatever you want to call them, that we didn't get quite worked out as well as they needed to be. And again, that'll happen right now. Early on, it's going to happen, and it's happening not just to us but to everybody because of those things. That's one of the things that when you go to 3 preseason games instead of 4, there's one less opportunity to work.
When you guys break for the off season, do you give your coordinators things to focus on like you do players? And was there anything you told Scott specifically as far as a game plan?
What happens more so than anything else is we do a complete review, and then we talk about it, and then we decide what we need to do and what direction we need to head. It's like on the defensive side, we knew we had to do certain things with the coverage, and I thought the things that Jack and the defensive staff came up with were really solid. I mean, they're a little different than what we've done for the most part, but I think using the players' skill sets, it really helps them. I thought so. On the offensive side, it was really about, making sure we got guys back healthy for the offense. I mean, we know what Curtis can do, and that's what was so frustrating about not having him on the field last year. And now that he's healthy, now that he's playing, to his ability, I think we all see what he's capable of and just how important it is. Those are plays that we couldn't use last year because we didn't have a body type like that. The thing that's interesting is now you see it also with Antonio, and hopefully when Brian Robinson returns, you'll get an opportunity to see us use AG a little bit more in space and try and create opportunities for him to get the ball in space. And that's what we think we can do with our offensive personnel.
So what we saw yesterday, was that closer to your vision for the offense from the outset?
Well, I think that's closer to the things that we talked about with Scott. Yes, again, it's the excitement is as that tight end group continues to get healthier and Logan gets a little bit more in tune with what we're doing and how we're doing it. Because again, remember, he and John missed training camp basically, and those young guys continue to develop. That's going to be a pretty good position for us, I believe. And the running back position, when Brian returns, is going to be a pretty good position for us. And we already know the wide receiver position is solid. So we have an opportunity to continue to work and spread the ball. We will.
Carson didn't throw a ton downfield yesterday, but when he did, it was effective. Do you see that as kind of a template for what could work moving forward as well?
Well, there were opportunities he didn't take, but when he did take them, he was pretty good at it. And it is something that I know that, as we continue to look at it and grow and he develops that rapport with those receivers that you need, I think it can become a more effective tool for us. I mean, it was, I think just kind of the start for us. And we'll continue to evaluate and see it. And it's the same thing with the defensive side. There are some things that we did, and I know Jack's gonna have a couple ideas that I think our guys are gonna continue to work on. All right. Thank you, guys.